Don't stay out. Well, thank you. No place to go. I'm on my body, just me and my radio. Ain't misbehaving.
Love these hats. Oh my goodness.
My love for you.
Wonderful. Got our roaring 20s music going. Oh, yeah, I see some dancing. Some honorees out there, some Cleos.
I don't stay out late, got no place to go.
A couple of more minutes. We have a really big group today, which is great because I think we have a lot to talk about.
Saving my love for you.
I'm so excited to have two Alpha Kappa Alpha chapters collaborating today to discuss our book. So we have a lot of people on. It doesn't mean we don't want everybody to talk, but we're gonna have to be patient with each other so that everyone can get there. Well, Christina, how are you feeling? You want to get started? Or?
I'm good. I'm still letting people in.
Maybe a couple more minutes. We'll let everybody else in.
Yep, looking good, ladies.
I love it.
I love it.
I'm all alone every evening, all alone.
Yeah, I think we should get started because we got a lot to go through today. So I want to introduce myself. My name is Sandy Adams, and I am a member of the Epsilon Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority, and I am the in charge of our book club, which is called the Literary Perils. I was looking to see if I saw any of our leadership on as of yet. They probably a couple.
Hi there, I'm here.
Okay, great. Okay. From the Epsilon Omega side, I do not see any of our leadership here, so I will just extend a hello from them. Our president is Jan Wood Carter, and our vice president is Corliss Austin, and I will extend a hello from them. We're glad they probably will be joining later on, as well as the head of our community initiative, Romaine Smallwood Faison. So
I'm here.
Oh, Romaine, okay. I'll let you come on and say hello.
My camera not on?
Your camera's not on, but we just see your name there.
Okay, give me 1 second while I'm working out that. Greetings, everyone. On behalf of Epsilon Omega chapter, I am Romaine Smallwood Faison. I am the chair of the Uplift Our Community Committee, and we are excited about this joint effort on us doing this book club. This book was amazing. I hope you guys all, or gals, 20 roaring 20 gals, enjoyed this. I am looking so forward to this discussion. And again, I thank you all for being here. Sorry that I'm having technical difficulties, but thank you so much for being here. Back to you, Sandy.
Terrific. And then I'm going to turn it over to Christina so that she can bring in her leadership as well and
All right.
introduce herself.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Christina Cruz, the facilitator of a Pretty Great Read Book Club with the Upsilon Epsilon Omega chapter. And with us at this time, we have our chapter president, Ms. Kendra Brown, our vice president, Ms. Jerome Avoid. She will be joining us at a later time. But if Ms. Brown would have any words to say, she can do so at this time.
Sure, thank you all. And I apologize, I am outside, but it's wonderful to see each and every one of you. Thanks to the Cruz for leading our Pretty Great Read Book Club. It is a wonderful effort, and we're so delighted to share with Epsilon Omega on today. I give you greetings on behalf of Jan Wood Carter also, who is my sister president. She's absolutely amazing. It's wonderful that each of you have joined with us on today, and we look forward to the discussion. Thank you.
I also see our vice president, Ms. Jerome Avoid, if she'd like to have words. If not, it's up to her.
Yeah, thank you so much, Christina. And I will just echo the words of our president, Kendra Brown. I enjoyed the book and I'm looking forward to the conversation today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to launch a poll. So the author is actually in the waiting room. And we did that because we want you guys to be as honest as you can and don't feel intimidated by the author being on the phone, even though she's been clear with us that she can take whatever we think. But I'm going to launch a poll for you all so that you can tell us what you thought about the book, okay? So it's a rating poll. I'm about to launch it now.
Can you do that? You certainly have the power to, but why do you want to up your legs? You've read about what was against you. Instead of having again for the first time in decades.
What?
We have 6 more people to answer.
Oh.
Mm.
Almost
And if
everybody.
everyone could please, if everyone phone, that would be great, except for our facilitators. Thank
Oh,
you.
I don't know if you can do it from your phone. I'm sorry about that.
You can do *6 from your phone to mute.
Okay. So I think that's just about everybody. Anyone who isn't able to put the rating from the poll, they can drop it into the chat. But it looks like we've gotten, can you all see the poll results? Or is it just me?
I can see it.
You all can see them? Good.
Mhm.
Okay.
For those,
So that's pretty good.
yeah.
That's
What do you think that
For those who are able to see the poll, the book is rated on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the lowest, 5 being the highest. So you can drop your number in the chat and we'll record that.
1 means no assistance of any
I dropped my number, but I'm unable to see the results.
and help you bring it back. You yourself
It
have
may
to
be a
have
host thing.
come down or you're
I'm not
automatically
sure.
disqualified. If you're not by then.
oh, there's another 5.
I can't see the results either.
Okay, so the results are for 5, 41%. For 4, 41%. For 3, 13%. For 2, 2%. And somebody really didn't like it. For 1, 2%. Okay.
You have to find out definitely why they didn't like it.
So great. That's very helpful for us as we begin these conversations. So I just wanted to tell you a few more things at the very end of today's presentation. We're going to have the author choose the best hat. And when they do, we have a prize that's book related for the person with the best hat. And then I also will be sharing the survey link. So Christina and I would like you guys to take the survey and let us know what you thought about our collaboration today. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Christina.
All righty.
Okay.
All right. Can you all hear me well?
It's a little hard to hear you, Christina. A few people not on mute.
Okay, so can everyone please mute themselves except for Christina? And when you're ready to comment, and we want a lot of comments, please, you can either raise your hand or put it in the chat. I'm going to be monitoring the chat to let Christina know. And Christina, you let me know when you're ready to bring the author in. We told her 2:15, which is like in about a minute. So if you want to ask a question first or bring her right in. The idea that we have told the author is that, you know, she's part of our book club today. So she's going to be answering questions. If you have questions directly of her, please feel free to put your hand up and say that you have questions that you can ask her. If not, she's just going to be joining in like the rest of us are. Okay.
All right. So I can't have a book club without my opening statement. If this is your first time with us, welcome. If you've been with us before, welcome back. All right. Today we'll be discussing Wild Women in the Blues by Denny Bryce. And as always, we have a lot to discuss. So let's go ahead and get into the discussion. All right. Sandy, if you want to bring in the author, you can. But I'm going to start with the first question. On page 8, Honore's feelings about having a man is mentioned. All right, it says she has no desire to have a man for the sake of having one, and not for better or for worse. And she made no apologies for her independent mind. So the question is, was that an unusual mindset for a woman to have at that time?
And as we have said, Miss Bryce has joined us. I'll give you a little quick background about her before we jump into that answer. Denny S. Bryce is the award-winning author of historical fiction novels, including Wild Women in the Blues and In the Face of the Sun. A former professional dancer and public relations professional, she is now an adjunct professor in the MFA program at Drexel University, a book critic for NPR, and a freelance writer whose work has been published in USA Today, Harper's Bazaar, and Frolic Media. She is a member of the Historical Novel Society, Women's Fiction Writers Association, and Tall Poppy Writers. Originally from Chicago, she now resides in Savannah, Georgia, and can be found online at Denny, DennySBryce.com. So Denny, if you could just let us see your face and.
I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Hi, everybody. I'm very pleased to be here.
So
on this
Denny,
lovely Saturday afternoon. Yay, Saturday.
So we just shared that Christina's going to jump right into the questions, and you're going to be a member of our book club today.
Okay.
And if anyone has questions directly for you, they will ask them as well. All right, so Christina, do you want to reread your question there so everybody knows what we're doing?
Sure. All right, so question 1, and you know I have a list of questions, my pretty great read folks, so we got to get through them. All right, so on page 8, Honore's feelings about having a man is mentioned. It says, she had no desire to have a man for the sake of having one, and not for better or for worse, and she made no apologies for her independent mind. The question posed is, was that an unusual mindset for women to have at that time? That's the first question. So let's get through that. And then I have a follow-up question.
You want me to answer? Or is it open?
It's open. Let's jump into it.
Okay, I'm gonna answer first, since I wrote it. I'll tell you that it's interesting that that's the first kickoff question, because I was having a conversation with some authors for another interview I just did with Brown Girl Collective. And one of the things that we were talking about was the difference in women independence in the 20s versus the 50s. Post-World War II, that statement would have been out of the box, would not have been a part of the female psyche. It might be a private thing, more so in the 50s, as opposed to the Roaring 20s, which was all about kicking aside the norm, being willing and able to try something different. Women had jobs unusual prior to World War I or the Great War. Women were doing things on their own, spending their own money, having roommates, girlfriend, roommates, boyfriend, roommates, and doing things very differently. So I felt Anna Ray was a character of her time.
Okay. Anyone else?
You have a hand up.
Crystal.
That's
Yes.
Buena. Okay.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Hello, Miss Bryce, and I'm happy to be here. It's really interesting that you would say that that is a time when women had more independence. They were spending their own money. I have an aunt whose mother lived in Raleigh, North Carolina, and she decided to move to Harlem around that same time. But my grandmothers, who were born in 1920 and 1922, they still had the mindset of being married and having children. And it really wasn't thought of that you would branch out on your own. It was still somewhat of a mindset that you would try to stay close to home, but they still had friends and relatives who would choose to do something different. So I think it also depends on the circle of women that you're in. I think it possibly depends on whether or not you're still in the South, or if you've moved to the North, or if you were kind of chased to the North because of poverty or just better opportunities or possibly abuse. So I think that she was before her time, but some other people may think that she was right on time. And I've seen both in my family.
Yeah. Oh, I'm drinking water.
There are a couple other hands. We have Wenna and Rachel.
Hi, it's Rachel. Good
Okay,
afternoon,
Rachel.
ladies. Hi, Ms. Bryce. I wanted to touch on it because I have 4 of my favorite aunts who also made that migration from the South up to the North. And it was 4 sisters, my aunt, my grandmother, and 3 sisters. And they came up here because they knew how she used to be, and they wanted to be those type of women that kind of took care of themselves. So of course they wound up getting married, having families, all that good stuff. But I remember it was, the family story is it was 4 sisters came to Baltimore to create that dream and that vision. So I do think she was pretty on time for her time frame, and that was back in like the 1920s.
Wenna, do you want to jump in there?
Yes. Hi, good afternoon, ladies. My name is Wenna. I actually have a question for you, Miss Bryce, and it pertains to your research that you did as you prepared for the book. So I read that you did a lot of research on the new Negro movement. So keeping in line with what we're discussing now, did you look at any past history with women up during that time as well?
Yes. Interestingly enough, the information from W.E.B. Du Bois, for example. W.E.B. Du Bois put out some very interesting comments regarding the role of women in the Black family. And that role pointed to stay home, take care of the kids, and make sure you are supportive of your man, who is the one who will carry the torch towards civil rights, et cetera, et cetera. So he was very much conservative, very much anti-feminist. And that mindset was something that was prevalent throughout the Black community, especially because of his influence and the whole influence that was very positive for the most part of the NAACP and his doctrine and the communication that came through that organization during that decade. However, women were not major players in the scheme. Black women were not major players in the scheme of, if I can jump into a 1960s or 70s word, of the revolution. They were just not a part of that scheme. So yeah, I did look at that. And then I did more of, because that shocked me when I really got into that. And so I used some of that in my second book, in fact, because I had a character who really admired W.E.B. Du Bois, and then was sort of, you know, the more she learned about what was happening in his rhetoric during that time period, it sort of put her on edge, to say the least. So yeah, I did.
The comment in the chat that says that mindset is still prevalent in some subcultures in the Black community now, unfortunately.
Very much so, very much so. It makes it a challenge. I think that if you go back and look through history and focus just on, well, there's so much history, so that's unfair of me to just say, look at this one thing. But, you know, we have a culture that so often pits Black women against each other. And you have that, you know, the ones who want this versus the ones who want that, and why they want it and why they don't. And I think all of that stems from a time where women had a certain role during the enslavement times that was very different from the male challenges during that time. So then once you come out of that, there was a need to protect maleness, Black maleness. And so I think in some regard, women were the victims, were continued victims of that mindset. So yeah, I do see it as happening. I know as recently as, well, not that recent, but my late mother was so much a part of that mindset. She married 5 times. And another practical thing I'll throw out for the reason of her many marriages was that you couldn't get a credit card without a man's signature until 1974. I mean, think about that. That's ridiculous, you know. And so, yeah, so there's a lot. Women's rights, Black women's rights, Black women pitted against each other historically, et cetera, et cetera. It's a lot of things to keep in mind and try to move around.
So Christina, because we have so many people on, we're probably going to have hands up a lot. And I don't want to miss your questions. So I'm thinking what we're going to do, and I don't want to exclude people with their hands up, so you can keep your hands up. But I'm thinking what we're going to do is let Christina go on with her next question and maybe go back to those people whose hands up to address the next one, if that's okay. Okay.
All right. So part 2 of this question was, how did this thinking affect her relationship throughout the novel, especially with Ezekiel? So it's a 2-parter.
So the question being, how did her thinking that she didn't really need a man affect her relationship with men in the novel, particularly Ezekiel? So Francina and Joanna Wallace both had their hands up for the previous question, so I'm going to start with them. Francina?
Oh, how you doing? And welcome, Miss Bryce. I just had a question. My favorite question is, how did you come up with the title of the book? Because I thought about Wild Women in the West, and you came up with Wild Women in the Blues. In addition to that, how did you come up with the characters' names? Are they composites or people that you actually know, or you just thought of them out of the blue?
No, I'm someone who really dives into the history of a name. But for the title, it's actually a play off of a song by Ida B. Cox that was put out in the 1920s as well. It's called Wild Women Don't Get the Blues. And it's been around for all of those decades. So I just changed some words around. The names, I just really like playing around with the idea of Bible names for the men in that particular story, especially in the 1920s. It seemed apropos. You had Ezekiel, you had Jeremiah, you had just every time. I just love those sort of names. And then Bailey is really an homage to, gosh, that Christmas, the Baileys, that Christmas movie, where the angel comes down and I can't remember the name of it right now, but I
Wonderful
love
Life?
Yes, because he's the Bailey family, and I just loved it.
Okay.
So that's where the Bailey name.
Honoree, okay.
Honoree was researched because it is Creole. Its origins are in Louisiana, in near and around New Orleans, and the other town I mentioned that now I can't, Baton Rouge.
Baton Rouge, right, okay.
Right, so I really did do some research on her entire name, and the last name in particular, what I found in one of W.E.B. Du Bois's books, where he lists all of the people who were in the service and during one of the wars. I think it was the Spanish-American War. So, yeah, I dig for those names, and Honoree is definitely, and I even made sure I told in the story, mentioned how her name should be pronounced, because I didn't want people doing it too far French and too far this and too far
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Joanna, did you want to address the question, which was Honoree, how she, her relationship with Ezekiel and how that had to do with her feelings about needing a man in her life?
Yeah, totally. First, thank everybody for taking the time. It was a great read. But I feel like her views were like conflicting in how she actually like interacted with Ezekiel, if that makes sense, right? Because when the book started, she was like, I don't need a man. When she first met Bessie, it was like, oh, he hits you, like, leave him alone. Like, you can live your life without a man. But it was like that push and pull of the fact that like she still like enjoyed his presence. And she like, he was her first love. So it was like that underlying, I guess, tension was always there throughout the book. But like, after I guess he disappointed her the first time, like he left and like she never heard from him again, I feel like that kind of like reinforced her thinking that she didn't need a man, because at the end of the day, all they would do is disappoint you. And I feel like she brought that up like later on in the book too, right before they were gonna leave to like, I think it was New York at the end, when she was like, you know, I could wait around for like Ezekiel to come, but you know, he might never come because he's gonna like die anyway, so it doesn't matter. And I feel like she was just trying to like, I don't want to say play on both sides, but she was trying to like rationalize her feelings, if that makes sense. And that was just how she was just like going back and forth. But I am happy that at the end she was able to like give into that love that she wanted, and they got their happy ending. So she was just like pushing and pulling through that, but I'm happy, yeah, she gave into it, if that makes sense.
Okay, great. So we're going to take one more for this one, Christina. Want to take one more response?
I think someone was talking.
No, it was just me. I was going to throw out the fact that, just a reminder, she's 19.
Yeah, it was really crazy. I thought she was like 20 or 30 or something. So like the fact that she's so young and the fact that she's still like going through that thought process too, like I don't know, I couldn't imagine dealing with that at 19. It's like crazy.
Well,
so she's learning as she grows. Yeah,
your life cycle was 50, so different time, different world, definitely. Well, maybe it was 60.
Okay, we'll take one more response to that question. Sheena McGee.
Hello, yes, how are you? Yeah, I also agree with Ms. Wallace was saying. I also think her abandonment issues with her mom and then Ezekiel leaving right after they, shared an intimate time, made her build a wall up that she couldn't trust him. It took her a while to, like she said, the end of the book, to kind of, feel like he wasn't going to leave again, like he wasn't going to abandon her again. She didn't want to embrace him and fall in love again without knowing. She kept on saying, are you gonna leave? Are you leaving? I heard you were gonna leave. Like she kept on mentioning that throughout the book. Like her whole a wall was just put up when he left her and her mother left her all at the same time. And I think that just made her feel like, I need to be independent. I need to just depend on me. I don't need anybody. I don't need a man, because she didn't want to have that disappointment and heartbreak again.
Absolutely. All right. Next question. How does colorism come into play throughout the story?
Interesting. No hands on that one.
I know. Why not?
I can always comment now. I try to stop myself, but colorism, generationally, colorism has always been a problem or challenge, a topic in the Black community, dating up to today, yesterday. When you see skin tone was something, especially in the 20s, that was part of how you were able to get places if you wanted to be in show business. For example, the brown bag test that I mentioned in the book was real. It was a part of how you got on stage. If you were too dark, you just couldn't get a job. Passing, in fact, a book that I have written and will revise, I'm sure, comes out next year, is about a woman. Rhinelander versus Rhinelander is the name of the case, that took place in 1925 when a very wealthy white man put his wife, said, I have to end our marriage. And the question was, why? Because you didn't tell me you were colored. And this became a front page news story in 1925 and for about 5 years there. But colorism is a part of the fabric of Black history. And I know some people who don't like to read about it, who don't like that, who just feel that that's perpetuating something by talking about it, but freedom of speech and all that. But still, I think it's an important aspect of our culture's past in particular that should not be skipped over.
So I'm going to take a few additional comments on this one for people we haven't heard from. So I'll start with Sheila Tidline.
Good evening, sorors and ladies overall, and author Bryce. When I first time I picked it up, or maybe one of the times I picked up the colorism, was I believe it was Bessie, when she was came to the house to audition. And it was no way was she there to be a dancer because of the way she looked. Now, I believe it seems like Bessie was a darker complexion. So I think it was because of her complexion, I think coupled with she perhaps was short and, just had that look overall that didn't fit a dancer. So that was, the good thing about Bessie is she didn't seem to care what someone thought. She knew why she was there. She knew what she could do despite what the person was saying to her, and she did what she could do, and she proved herself and was able to get the part. Now, of course, was it because of all the other reasons that they said Bessie was sent there? I don't know, but that's a different question. But that's when I first picked it up, and I love the fact that Bessie she stood up to being her true darker complexion self and showed that she was capable of being as great of a dancer and performer as the others. And I loved her character. She was funny.
Great. Tanira James.
Yes, and you said it right. Thank you. Hi, everyone. But yeah, just as everyone's basically been saying, colorism, it just keeps playing a part in every single little, even just from having the club itself. How they were, oh, it's a little rinky-dink, oh, hole in the wall, sawdust on the floor, and all the other stuff. You didn't see any white people in that club specifically, but then the Black and tan clubs, then of course, all right, you can do this and you can do that, but it was just a part of the time period. It keeps moving forward, even in our lives today. We always have this idea, oh yeah, we're a combined society up into, oh, Black Lives Matter, oh, do you live it, and all of this, and it just keeps spinning all the time.
I want to throw in a question that's from the chat that's directed to you, Ms. Bryce. Can you please, and I think it's sort of related here, so that's why I'm throwing it in. It says, can you please comment on the desire to have bleach blonde hair for Trudy?
Combination of two things. The Black she was known as the Black Greta Garbo, I believe, actress in the 50s who had blonde hair, who left the business after a while, but she was gorgeous, she was glamorous, and that was her go-to. But also, I found a photo of a Black woman from the 1920s who had blonde hair, and she was sharp. With her look was just, you know, what her look was. She was dark complexioned with blonde hair, and I said, hey, and that sort of fit Trudy's, Trudy's edge. Trudy is one of my favorite characters that I've written. Actually, there's another character that I like, but I love that you don't really know how much dirt she was into, but you just had to guess that she was doing something. And I really, if I go back to that world, I would go back and have Trudy, go back to Trudy, except she'd be like a detective or something. I don't know.
Somebody here called her the original Mary J. Blige.
Yeah. There you go. Right? So yeah, so it wasn't any huge commentary on anything except why not? Dye your hair, do what you want to do. And she was just, you know, another example of that 20s thing, especially after I saw that photo.
Hey, Christina.
Yes.
Go ahead with your.
All right. Let's jump to another character. At his first introduction, do you think that Sawyer is white or Black? I originally thought white because of the way he addressed Honore at first meeting. He, you know, addressed her by first name, and someone at that age, you know, certainly you're not familiar with each other. So what did everyone else think?
Drop it in the chat. White, Black, white, Black.
At his first introduction, we learned what he really is, but what did you think initially?
Initially. Oh, there's a couple whites. Black, but a woman.
Oh.
I thought he was Black, white. So is there someone who thought he was white that wants to comment? You want to raise your hand, one of the people who thought he was white? I see Abiola. Did you think he was white?
Crystal Green did.
No, my hand was up for the previous question. I thought he was Black.
Okay, okay. Who thought he was white? Crystal, did you think he was white?
I thought he was white. He just seemed very awkward. Just, I understand that his sister, you know, he had a tragedy and he was moving through grief, and he was just in a place where he was wanting to be normal and just get out of that grief. But he was awfully awkward. So once he started speaking about the nurse's aide, then it clicked. He's Black, but he's awkward, and maybe he's not accustomed to the tradition that you show respect and you don't just, you know, call people by their first names. That's not something that we do. Maybe in the workplace, you know, if someone says you can do it, but generally speaking, being African American, that's not what we do. So once he started talking about the nurse's aide, I figured, oh, he's Black, but he's just awkward.
So who wants to speak that thought he was a woman?
I'll speak. I had to actually go back. I'm sorry. Good afternoon and welcome, Miss Bryce. I thought I missed something because for some reason I thought he was a woman, and something I can't remember what made me go back and think about. I'm like, oh, okay, and then I had to start rereading again. But for some reason, I just thought the name Sawyer. I just saw a female bent to it. I didn't think masculinity at all.
Some people are saying they thought he was gay.
Yeah, and sorry, for me, I thought he was a woman from the fact that he was just very like, I don't want to say like stressed or neurotic, but like he was thinking like really fast, and like, I don't know, I haven't typically met guys who had like the same thought process that Sawyer had. Like he was, I don't want to say all over the place, but it was like a very like high stressed environment. I can tell he was like dealing with a lot. He was like, my sister, my book, my play, like, oh my gosh, the aid. And it was like jumping a lot of back and forth, kind of like how I think. And I was like, okay, so it's this girl, she's trying to get her play written. And then when she was talking with Honoree and she was like, oh, you look like a girl. And I was like, wait, is that not a girl? So I had to like breathe that back. And I'm like, oh, it's a guy. He's just very stressed. But yeah, from how it was written, and especially it being a first person too, it just gave like woman vibes at first.
Yeah. Well, part of the if you listen to the audio tape of the book, if just even listen to a sample, the man who does Sawyer, for people who listen to him right off the bat, they know he's a man. So there you go. But I did write him to be non-typical Black man. That was a deliberate choice. I wanted him to be not be hyper masculine, machismo or whatever. I wanted him to be, frankly, to be stressed. I love that. He was totally stressed out, and he was not your typical guy that you think you see. Now, I have a son. Well, he's a grown man, et cetera, but I remember his college days and all of his friends, because he's an only child, but all the boys, all the gang would end up at my house during something that was happening at Howard. They went to school in Boston, but they'd come for Howard's annual something. And all of these young men were asking me questions about women. Why do they do this? And da, 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 da. And they were all stressed all the time, 18, 19, 20, 21, out of their minds. And now they're professionals and families and whatever. And they're very, they got it together now. But I like reminding them when they used to come to my house and sit and eat up all my food and have that stressed life that they wouldn't show anybody else. It had to be somebody's mother. So it was deliberate. But I also—
People are also putting in the chat how he called his grandmother by her first name.
Mm-hmm.
And people are putting that they thought that was disrespectful, and
because we don't do that.
Yeah, different families do different things. Because in my family, that would not have been necessary. No, it wouldn't have been. My family's Jamaican and Bermudan, and whatever came to mind is usually what happened. But different types but I do hear you, because I'm noticing that as, I live in the South now. I've never lived in the South. And there's a whole different structure to how people communicate. I'm not used to people, like, for example, you all are calling me Miss Bryce. I call me Denny, that's my name. But that's, different for different situations. And usually I just say that, but I hear you. It's something I've learned, frankly, versus growing up with it.
Okay. All right. We have two more, and then I want to hasten along. Abiola or Crystal, did you have anything towards this?
Yes, I just wanted to mention that I actually did listen to the audio instead of doing the reading. And initially, when you first asked the question about thinking whether he was white or Black, I was like, wait, how is that something that needs to be debated? Because as the author just stated, it was the character who played that you pretty much got all of that, the awkwardness, the social anxiety. You got it right off the bat with his voice, and you could tell, oh yes, this is a Black man. He's just one of the, the different Black guys who would, in this day and age, probably watch anime, do the Naruto run across the hallway. So that was communicated very well through the audiobook, and it just shows the nuance between what you all experience from reading the actual book on your own, as opposed to listening to it.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I'm a book purist. I like hard copies. So
Yeah,
no idea.
same here, but I realize sometimes it like with the timing that I'm sure all of us don't have with me, when I have to do like readings or anything like that, I do it on my car, in my car, on my commute to work or something like that. So I like to hear it.
No problem.
And audio tapes or audible or whatever it's called. One of the most popular, fastest growing areas of publication right now, because they're doing sometimes they're going straight to audio with written materials, manuscripts and things like that. So I do both. Actually, I do everything. It's like I have the book. If I have it on my iPad, I have it in my ears because I have so much information that I need to go through, and reading a lot when I'm doing reviews, or just reading because I do blurbs for other authors.
All right. All right, let me jump around with my questions so we can like really get into the book. All right, I'm going to jump around from now on. Is Honore the cause of Houdini's death? And I'll do a follow-up question. Do you have sympathy for Honore in the days following Houdini's death?
Francis, is that a question you want to address? I saw your hand was up, so we don't want to.
Yes, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Ms. Bryce. It was not a question I wanted to address. I actually raised my hand after Ms. Bryce made the comment of being so openly, and I just wanted to thank her for being so openly and transparent with us when she talked about how she's still trying to work on the fact of hearing the myths, because that's not something she's accustomed to and something that she's used to. So I just really wanted to thank her for being so transparent and open with us.
Thank you very much, Francis. Nashar, do you want to take a shot at Christina's question?
Yes. Hello, my name is Nashara. So I do believe it was Honore's fault. That's why Houdini got killed, because I felt like she was caught up with, getting past the auditions and getting accustomed to the girls, from what I remember. And I feel like if she didn't take so long, Houdini would have definitely still been alive, and everything that followed after wouldn't have happened.
Okay. Danielle, do you have a answer here?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. I would say that sometimes we get pulled into things that you don't necessarily know is going to happen. She had good intentions. She had no idea what was involved with this envelope that she was bringing in, and she had forgotten and went to bring it back and brought it back inside and got caught in that mix. And I think all of her steps after that was trying to avoid, I'm trying to avoid any drama. I'm trying to avoid anything else. I don't want people to know something. And to me, it appeared like she was just trying to move on with life. She just wanted to go back to dancing, forget all about this, put this in the little bucket. And then one thing after another kept happening. So I don't necessarily think she is the cause of it. She was trying to distance herself from the situation and just couldn't. It was like an avalanche after that.
Okay, we got I'm gonna get a couple more of our people who haven't commented an answer to this one. Diane?
Thank you. I don't think she was the cause. She should have never been given the envelope. If they knew the importance of what was happening, the people involved in it should have been responsible for it. The young lady, I can't remember her name, who gave her the envelope, she is the cause, because she should have been the one to deliver that very important envelope to Houdini.
A lot of people agree. I see them everybody's putting that in the chat. And Angel, we didn't hear from you. Did you want to give us your opinion there?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. I
think Trudy wasn't able to give the envelope because she was covering Honore's shift. So Honore could go to the audition, but she should have explained the importance of it. And not, I think she very casually just said, hand this over to this guy, you'll know him when you see him. It was a life or death situation. She should have said it needs to happen by this time and explain the urgency, or given it to somebody else to give to him if she couldn't have done it. Somebody that was involved and understood the importance of it.
And we have one more hand. Sherry.
You have two more.
Oh, okay.
Nashara and Sherry.
I agree with Diane and Angel that she shouldn't have been tasked with this. And if so, the importance should have been laid out. What I struggle with, though, is that after she realized this envelope had some important stuff in it, somebody is dead now, why wasn't she honest with Ezekiel and say, you know what, I still have the envelope here. You know, would it help for anyone if I just get rid of it? And I think not doing that and holding on to it, that is that thing hanging over you. Wherever she goes, there's no true freedom in that, because you're worried if someone's going to recognize you or if you're going to get hemmed up in some sort of situation. And it's just like this domino effect of things that happen. And we think about a 19-year-old too, and I remember when I was 19, it's been a long time, but I'm like, I remember. And I clearly remember not making the best decisions.
I need that quote behind you.
Thank you.
Nashara.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I was just about to say what Sherry said. I definitely see it as a domino effect as well. The reason why I did say it is her fault is because essentially when you think about the very beginning of the situation, essentially she wanted to get away from Archie so she can go to this rehearsal, if I'm not mistaken. And she thought about it as, okay, let me go ahead and just make a deal with Trudy so she can have my back, you know, so essentially she won't get in trouble. So essentially she in a way knew what she was putting herself into without knowing, if that makes sense. So essentially she holds a sense of responsibility because of what she was planning on doing, which essentially seems like she wasn't supposed to leave and go audition elsewhere.
A lot of people are writing in the chat that she may have been shocked. She didn't know who to trust after witnessing the murder. Deep down, she never really trusted Ezekiel. Maybe the author can give us a little bit of insight on this. What do you looking into this?
No, I love listening to perspectives on these moments, because as an author, you sit down and you're just writing. And yes, I deliberately knew that Trudy was cutting a deal. That's the way Trudy thought of life. She was cutting a deal. I'll do for you, you do for me. The circumstances she may or may not have known. Nothing went into her POV, so we don't know. Did she really know what she was leading Honore into? At the same time, Honore was someone who had been on her own. Not only was she only 19, but she'd been on her own since she was 12 or 13 years old. I can't remember when. She trusted nobody, really. The person she trusted the most was herself. The second person I think over time that she trusted was Bessie, even more so than Ezekiel. So I'd say that it's circumstances out of your control. I think someone said, they didn't use the word butterfly effect, but essentially that one thing after a domino effect is what I thought I heard. And that's definitely what happened. And that's part of storytelling that you oftentimes want to put on the page. You want to put, they tell you in classes, in craft classes, put your hero or heroine or your POV character, your main character, in as much deep water as you possibly can. and see how they get out of it, or if they can get out of it. And that is something that is intriguing to the reader of the story. How are they going to figure this out? And also writing characters with flaws. Honore had so many flaws. She was fun to write because she wasn't perfect. And that's just a selfish author thing. I really enjoy, well, I try to make most of my characters have issues and flaws and things like that, and see if they can get over the hump. That's part of the story, over the hump. She got over the hump, but it happens in the epilogue, really. By the time, because she achieves exactly what she wanted. She has her own dance hall in Paris. She's on her own. She's doing all these things. Ezekiel shows up and it's like, yeah, that was nice back in the day. Let's see if you can make it work today. So she didn't automatically say yes, but you know, people come back into your lives and it might surprise you when they walk through the door 20 years later. It's happened to a friend of mine. Then it's J-Lo, you know. So anything's possible.
Someone put in the chat that Honore reminded them of Josephine Baker.
I got that too.
Yeah, Josephine Baker, definitely a inspiration for her character. Also, years ago, my experiences as a professional dancer were a part of the locker room feel of the story with dancers, because that happened. You sit around, you're getting ready to do a show, you're stripping in and out of your clothes, you have your makeup on, you're talking smack. And back in when I was dancing, this is many years ago, we were also smoking cigarettes and all of this sort of stuff, which is crazy to think of now, but that's what we did. And I used to dance in New York. And it was just part of, you know, you didn't like somebody because they looked a certain way, we're going to get more jobs, or they stole your makeup or your hair clip or something like that. So, you know, it was fun, but it was crazy pants.
So this is probably Christina's next question, but there's a lot of people who want to talk about Bessie, and some comments that some people thought Bessie was gay and was in love with Honore. And Sherry just says, can we character study Bessie? There's a lot to unpack right there.
Yeah.
So as I tell the Pretty Great Read Book Club members, let me stop asking my questions before I can. My next question was definitely going to be about Bessie, and Miss Bryce did mention her. I'm like, oh, you know, perfect segue. So my question is, who is Bessie Palmer? She was introduced on page 14. You know, she came out the shadows of the room. Throughout the story, I'm not sure if this is related, but a Palmer house is mentioned. The much discussed Baton Rouge house is also mentioned in relation to Bessie. And what we learn is the real Bessie than Honore. Later on, you know, Honore, before we knew was Bessie, she kept saying, so-and-so never owned this house, so-and-so never owned this house. So who is Bessie Palmer? Because she's a little mysterious. But she also comes, let me throw in another question. What is her true purpose and contribution to Honore's life? She appears out of the shadows, as I mentioned. She clings to Honore and becomes an immediate and permanent fixture in her life. She cleans up messes, also oftentimes comes in through the clutch. So it's like, you know, she came in out the shadows and now she's a major fixture in the story and in other characters' lives. Who is she?
The first hand went up was Joanna.
All right.
Hi. I don't know. I feel like Bessie grew on me throughout the book. She was also really funny from the first moment we met her. But like the dynamic between Honore and Bessie, I felt like, to me, it resembled like a big sister, little sister, because I was so blown throughout the whole book from the fact that Bessie was 16. Like, The age difference gave big sister, little sister. And it was like, I don't know if like when you were younger, you like saw an older woman or like girl, you're like, oh my gosh, she's so cool. I want to like be like her when I grow up. That's like the vibes I got from Bessie to Honoree, which is crazy because when you get to the end of the book, I guess Bessie in her way became Honoree. But like, I feel like aside from that dynamic, Bessie was good in just like showing that Honoree could be like caring and she could be like nice and like soft. And it was like a good foil to see how in a way like Bessie brought that out of her. Because if I don't know, I feel like if Honoree never met Bessie, you wouldn't have seen like the different layers of her. Like, yeah, she is caring and like, yeah, she would do anything. Like she really like went up to into like Archie's office and was like, you got her pregnant, like you need to like take care of her. So I feel like that was the point of her, just to like see the different layers of her. Yeah, like I think Diane said they needed each other. They definitely did. And just seeing them grow together, you really got to see like the fullness of like that relationship and how they could like in a way become family in the midst of like everything that was like happening too.
Great. Sheila Tidline. Trying to unmute there. So while you're trying, let's get Sherry.
I'm unmuted.
Oh, you're unmuted. Okay.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that. To me, Bessie she contributed to the title Wild. You know, wild women. She was the wild woman to me. When she had no problem whatsoever taking that broomstick and killing the guy, like, I'll do it again, you know, and again, no problem. And again, you know, so she was so, you know, strong in whatever she felt. Like I said, I liked her from the beginning. When she walked in to that to audition, knowing she was this little dark complexion woman who didn't fit the role, in their opinion, of someone to be where she was. She didn't care what anyone thought. She just went up there and did what she could do, and she did well. And she became a dancer. And the fact that Honoree cared enough for her to want to get her out of the abusive situation she was in, that she cared for her. She showed her something that maybe Bessie had not experienced. So because of that, she was going to be that protector. Even though she was younger, she seemed to be a protector of Honoree. Like she wanted to be there. Like she sensed maybe something was going on because she didn't see her upstairs that night. Like, where's Honoree? And so she goes downstairs and thought nothing of doing what she did to, you know, protect her from being raped by the guy. So, and also the guy that just happened to also be the father of her child. So I guess that didn't help either. But at the end of the day, Honoree, as she gets older, as she talks, as she take on the identity of Honoree, all of that is like, she's a wild woman. I mean, this woman was just all over the place. I mean, just the mere fact that she was talking to Sawyer all this time, knowing full well who she was, but perpetrating to be Honoree. To me, Bessie was truly a wild woman in the blues.
All right.
I got Color Purple vibes from their friendship.
Yeah.
So did I. I kept wanting that twist to come through, but I exactly where.
I think
we heard that, and Michelle, you also said you thought that Bessie was Honoree's conscience, right? Which is another interesting point. Sherry, you had your hand up?
Yes, I felt like in some places Bessie allowed Honoree to or a safe place to trust someone. Honoree seems to kind of like to go out on her own, do her own thing, not trust anyone else, not really rely on them. And I think there's a closeness that is created between the two, but I think it's initiated by Bessie and her willingness to show up as a friend, a true friend to Honoree. And I feel like even in the end, that's the only person, maybe I could be wrong, that Bessie really cared about on a deep level. So much so that she becomes her, that living legacy in the States, though Honoré is away in Paris. There's no, I didn't see that deep connection. I mean, she said it even while she was pregnant, I don't want this child, I want nothing to do with it. Da, da, da. Okay, all right. But then the notion of the women are cursed, that inflicting of pain on Sawyer, the distant relationship with Maggie, there are all these other relationships that never, that aren't watered, those little seeds that aren't watered, but the one that blossoms and flowers for decades is the one with Honoré. So it felt like to me, she's like, you can trust me and you're my friend. And there's almost this fawning over Honoré for a second, but then seeing that she really trusts me and relies on me, and we're moving in this place together. But that's the only close relationship I saw of Bessie, and it made me wonder more about her.
Okay. There was also one question in the chat. Why was it necessary for Bessie to take on the identity of Honoré? A few people asked that question.
Stop jumping ahead, y'all.
Czar, that was
That's fine.
My typing is terrible.
Go ahead.
Well, I'll jump in on this one a little bit just to start the conversation. I think that Bessie, for me, Bessie was a character whose level of abuse, the abuse that she had experienced all of her life prior to meeting Honoré, had sort of didn't allow her to have an identity. She was what abusers had made of her. And Honoré was someone who turned to her, and she was enamored by Honoré. And after Honoré left, and after the mayhem in the office, in Archie's office, I think that she sort of said, I'm going to live this life, but this life is still not anything I can piece together. The best thing I can remember was Honoré. She didn't like the kid. She didn't like things around her that she just didn't like. And I think that, considering, and one of the other things that I read a lot about during that time period were women who were mistreated or perhaps had some sort of mental problem or depression or anything like that. They weren't treated like people. They were cast aside even further in the society structure, and especially Black women. You were just, oh, well, I don't know what's hysteria. That was the only title they could give something. So I think that at least in my writer world, what I was trying to write about was a woman who didn't have a sense of identity. So she grabbed hold of the best thing she could think of, and she didn't want to let her go.
Great. Christina, what you got next?
All right, I'm going to jump around again. What is the connection between Honoré and Azizi? Okay, next question.
Oh, just digging deep into the darkness. Azizi was a favored child. That's the only thing I'll throw out there. Azizi was a favored child.
Okay. All right.
I mean, I thought maybe someone else had an answer to that question. That's a tough one.
Are there any hands? Is this
no hands?
No hands?
I have managed to stump the audience. All right. How is? Go ahead.
Just to throw this out there, if you notice that most of the characters, again, flaws. Azizi's flaw was she didn't want him to tell her daddy what, if I recall, I don't know what version now I put in the book. She was also at the top of whatever, she was a dancer too. That was one connection between her and Honore. She was a dancer in the story, right?
Yes.
Oh, good. I had her have different careers. Oh God, this is what happens. So I've written 3 books since this one. I'm sorry.
Wow.
But that was that dancer energy I sort of passed around because it's very self-centered. It's very glamorous. It doesn't have anything to do with looks or anything like that. It has to do with control. You have such a tremendous amount of control of your body and your mind when you're dancing. At least that's the feeling I have about it. And that can mean that you put other people away. It's just like, I got this. And she was that type of character. So she and Honore were, a real Honore, were very similar.
All right. In the same vein, as Sawyer meets with Honore, we continue to see different stages and attitudes of Azizi's ghost until we and Sawyer no longer see her. How does she connect the family?
She's more important to Sawyer's connection to his portion of the family. Okay. But also Honore sees through Sawyer's weaknesses she almost uses Azizi's ghost against Sawyer in some scenes, if I recall correctly. Honore's, Bessie Honore was a savvy person after years in time. She just lived so long that, and still had her wits about her. I have an aunt who's about to turn 98 and she's still driving her car. If you live in Dayton, Ohio, that's your problem.
Get off the road. Okay.
Still in that car, going to the grocery store. But she's all there with us, and that energy is just very interesting to me. And so she saw through Sawyer, and she was gonna. Just another thing about writing books, you have characters who have all these arcs, and you want them to change from the beginning of the book to the end. I deliberately did not want Bessie Honore to change. She's the same girl that stepped out of the shadows when she dies. Nothing, her essence is the same.
Okay.
Danielle, her hand is up, and then we have Sherry.
I was just gonna say about the whole Azizi character and Honore, the 110-year-old Honore. It was just this kind of the fact that there's a ghost and where Honore was kind of like a ghost, if you think about it toward the end, because she really wasn't her, she was Bessie. And so that's the only thing that I thought of toward the end about the two of them. And I was like, well, maybe that's why she connects, because really technically she's like a ghost. But it was just strange. And then all of a sudden you didn't see her anymore. So.
Yeah. Sherry?
My the older folks in my family used to say that as you're nearing the end, there's someone familiar who's there to kind of bring you on over to the other side. And I felt like Azizi was there to help Sawyer get to and stick with Honore. Azizi was also there to be that bridge to family that Bessie Honore was not able to create in life. And I think she was there to usher her over to the other side. As Honore gets older, well, not old because she's already old, but as she gets closer to the end and she's, more sickly and feeble and, hey, she's clamping down now, Azizi's gone. She's gone. We don't see her anymore. And I felt like that was it. That person who's bringing you on over. And it needed to be that reconciliation anyway. And I think a bit of that was able to happen in life that would carry over in the transition.
Mm-hmm.
Great point.
Absolutely.
Sheila, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, I love that too, by the way. That was nice.
Sheila, can't hear
And
you.
unmute yourself. Okay. All right, Christina, go ahead.
Okay, quick question to the author. Did Bessie Honore know who Sawyer was?
Okay, I have to. The reason I pause is because I had different versions and I'm trying to remember which one I put in the book. I think she always knew.
Okay.
He was.
Okay. All right. And
I'm
Sheila
on
has
mute.
her hand up.
okay.
This is Sheila. I'm sorry. To Sherry, listening to Sherry's comments, I love that Azizi, the fact that Honore Bessie knew Azizi was in the room. Like it was interesting that when Sawyer was talking to her, he didn't know, but one day she said, "Who else is here?" Or, she knew that there was someone else in the room, that he was dealing with the ghost of Azizi. And when she asked him the question, who died? I believe she wanted him to say Azizi died. And she also wanted him to know, I know she's here. And, and so to the point that Sherry was making that, perhaps Azizi helped transition her, I do believe, as many of you may have heard, as you get older, as people are transitioning, they see people. Now, why did Bessie see Azizi? I don't know. Was Bessie her, was Honore the grandmother, or was Bessie the grandmother? I don't know, but there was some relationship there between Sawyer, Azizi, and Bessie Honore. They almost became the same person at the end to me. Yeah. But Azizi was truly a presence that was important, I believe, in the transition of Bessie towards the end. I really believe that.
I think Bessie was Azizi's great grandmother.
Well, yeah, but was it Bessie or was it Honore? That's why I didn't, that one threw me up. I wasn't clear.
No, Bessie's Margaret, was that the name of the daughter of his? Yeah, that was her daughter.
Maggie.
Thank you. Yeah, that was the child she was pregnant with.
Right.
By Dewey.
Archie's brother's child.
Okay.
Was I mean, that's Sawyer's connection is Archie. Archie. What was Archie's
Margaret
brother?
and Dewey were her parents.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
And someone also put in the chat, which is interesting, talking about Sawyer, that question you had, Christina. I felt like she knew one day he would come looking and asking questions about her past.
Nice. Okay.
I think she said that in the story, right?
That's interesting. I really love hearing all of these perspectives, because once you write a book, the goal is to let it go, because it becomes it's the reader's book after you get it out there to the world. And it's very gratifying to hear all of these ideas surrounding these characters, ideas that I may not have had as I wrote the story, but still it's in there, whatever the reader takes away, it's on the page for them to interpret. So I'm very, very excited about this conversation. It's very, very good.
So we're getting near the end. Christina is going to ask us a wrap-up question.
Oh no!
Oh, we're getting near the end. And then we want to have everybody turn their cameras on so we can take one picture. And then everybody who would like to be judged on the hat contest can turn their cameras on, and we will have the judge. We will have the author judge. So let's start first with Christina's wrap-up question. Christina.
Okay. My folks know I don't have just one question. It's always just one more. All right. So I'm going to fuse two questions together, and then Oh, can I get 3 more? Because one is like really important. Okay. I'm going to choose 2 questions, skip around, ask another question, and then I have a question of the author, and that'll be my last question.
Okay.
I think.
So don't leave us, people, because we'd like to get a picture. So, okay.
Oh, Pretty Great Read, we go beyond our allotted time. 2 hours or like, no, we need more. All right. Okay. So the 2-parter is, were you surprised at the revelation that Honore and Sawyer are related? And the second part is, were you shocked that Honore in 2015 is really Bessie? Now, let me tell you, I was laying down when I read this. And when it was revealed that Honore was Bessie, I literally sat up and looked around, you know, that meme where the lady looks up, she's laying down and she looks around and she's like, what? That was me. I was like, no way. Okay. So then further, I was with the rest of the book, I was like, okay, so then is this Bessie and Honore? I was trying to figure out the 2. I'm like, are they 2 different people, or, you know, what's really going on? So is anyone else shocked at these 2 revelations?
Put in the chat shocked if you were shocked.
Okay, and they can be quick responses, because you know I got to get my other questions in, my other 15 questions in. No, right.
Shocked. I see a lot of shocked, Christine.
People were shocked.
A lot of shocked. Totally shocked. And I saw a couple of not shocked, but mostly shocked.
I literally was going back and looking for clues. I'm like, oh, well, she did say this, but I didn't put 2 and 2
The whole thing
together.
about Baton Rouge was a clue.
So can somebody who was not shocked, so put your hands down if you were shocked. If you were not shocked, leave your hand up, and so we can answer that.
Good question.
So Dr. Renita Walker, can you tell us why you were not shocked? We can't hear you.
Oh, can you hear me?
Now we can hear you.
Yes, thank you so much, Christina, for that question and for joining us, Ms. Bryce. So I'll make this quick because I know you got 15 more questions, but it was so interesting. There was one piece in the book where it was hinting that Bessie or Honore Bessie knew Sawyer because she made a comment, and I made a mental note when she said, yeah, Sawyer, I'm not sure. I've had tons of visitors over the years. And then when he went and spoke to Lula said, well, no, there's only been 2 visitors. So at that moment, I kind of made a mental connection, like, was she waiting for him to come? Did she want to challenge him to figure out, you know, their lineage, to piece it together before her final days? But by her intentionally lying to him, saying, I've had thousands, you know, hundreds of people visit me. I can't remember who's come to visit me. She specifically knew that Sawyer's dad had came. And I think that she was purposefully waiting for him to make the connection and then come and see her. And then once he kind of made the connection, she made a quick comment and was like, I thought you would have figured this out a week ago or 2 weeks ago. So for me, I feel like she always knew who he was from the first day that he came to visit her.
Interesting. And Angel, did you have something to add to that one?
The last book club book that we read had kind of a similar, the person isn't who they say they are, plot twist. And I just feel like I don't trust, sorry, I had a call coming in that might have interrupted. Uh-oh. Can you hear me or see me anymore?
Yeah. What book was
okay,
that?
great. That was Black Cake. And it was really great. And this as well, but yeah, I just don't trust anybody anymore when I'm reading books. I'm always
our book club read that one as well.
Yeah, it's called The Unreliable Narrator. And you have there was a question, and I'm sorry, I won't talk long. There was a question over here, or a comment that, and now I've lost track of it, that whether or not the story being told was Bessie's story or was it Honore's story? And that is a very interesting question that I wish I could answer. Because the narrator, who was the narrator of the 1920s story?
Yeah.
It was Honore, but it would have been interesting if I'd thought of it for it to be Bessie. And then what's the truth from what's the fiction? Anyway.
Christina, do you have more?
Okay, I'm gonna narrow it down to 2 questions because, but I have a list. Believe me, I have a list. Okay, why didn't Bessie and Honore maintain contact after Archie's death? Or did they?
They did not. In my story world, they did not.
What happened? They were so close.
Honore wanted to get away. Honore was done with America and everything. She thought everybody was dead. Keeping in mind that there were no cell phones, there were no she had to get out of Dodge. And once you get into Europe, when she went to Europe, she got into whatever life she was in. There was a war coming. Second World War was started in Europe, frankly, in 1935, 1934. So she'd only been there a little while. So in my story world, they did not communicate. The other piece was she barely communicated with her mother.
Mm-hmm.
She let it all go.
Okay, we have some hands, but Christina, if you have one more question, I want to let you answer that.
All right. The last question, which is never really the last question with me. There's so much more to discuss. I love it. This is to the author, Miss Bryce. Did you ever consider an alternate ending? And if so, what would have changed?
Yes, I did consider an alternate ending. And I hate to even admit it because several of my author friends were the ones who were like, don't do that. I was Ezekiel was dead. He was dead on the floor. I'm sorry to be that way because my friends were like, don't you dare kill him. And I said, okay. So I didn't. Don't tell anybody.
Okay. Yes.
I have a tendency, one of my favorite quotes is from a play by Ibsen called, I can't even remember the name of it now, but there's a line in the play that says, it's Hedda Gabler. And there's a line in the play that says, the one thing I would want to do is shape a human destiny. And one of the powers of being a writer is life and death. So, and I don't have a God complex or anything like that, but I have a tendency that in the drama of storytelling, people go and people come and things happen. Ezekiel was a problematic character for me. He had issues that I felt he wasn't always her best choice of people to be with. He changed 20 years later, but when she knew him, he killed people and did some things that were just not cool. So anyway,
It's interesting. You're getting a mix of comments here. Some people are saying, I can see that. I thought he was going to die after he put her on the train to New York. Yeah. He had to go. And some people are saying, I would have been devastated. Oh no.
I love it. I love he had to go because that's sort of one of my lines that when I'm with my writing partners, I'm like, he has to go. And they're like, no, Denny, no. And I'm glad I didn't kill him because it would not have been the same satisfactory ending for Honore. She needed to close that circle. So, yeah.
Okay, one more question.
Excuse me.
All right, Christina, we're running over our time.
It's based on the previous question.
Okay.
how would the story have changed if the Bessie Honore revelation was earlier? Or would the story have changed?
A great question.
If we knew Bessie, if Honore was actually Bessie earlier in the story?
It would have taken away I felt, the third act pacing. And as a writer, I really wanted Bessie to do a heroic but dangerous act. I always knew that scene at the end where she kills, what was his name? Somebody remember?
Dewey.
Dewey. Oh gosh.
Archie's brother.
Dewey. Little brother.
Dewey.
When she kills Dewey, excuse me, that was a scene I knew from the beginning. Early on, I knew that I saw that scene. So I wanted her to be heroic before we broke down the mystery too much. And even though her heroism is jaded, killing, heroism, and her many reasons for killing, I still, I thought it needed to be later in the story.
Okay, last two hands, and then we're going to go to some voting. So we have Sherry and Wenna.
Yes. Ms. Bryce, I actually had a question about your background because I read your bio, and this was really cool. I saw that you were a fan of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I am also a fan.
Oh gosh, yeah.
So I read that you've written fan fiction for Buffy and Spike. So I know your genre is historical fiction. Have you ever flirted with the idea of Afrofuturism?
Well,
sci-fi.
Many of my sci-fi vampire stories that are the quote unquote under the bed stories, I did a lot of research because I went back historically. One of my vampires originated in Nigeria or West Africa, and he was involved with a Dutch captain of a ship way back in the 16th or 17th century, and then I brought him forward. So my obsession with research drives anything I write. And one day I'm going to pull that book out and I'm going to finish it because yes, I wrote about 500,000 words in fan fiction. I did mostly Buffy, Spike, and then Leverage fanfic I wrote, and also Being Human, which was a vampire story in Britain a few years ago. But I did that before I started writing original stuff. A friend of mine actually recommended I come with her to an RWA conference because we were writing so much, hey BB, fan fiction, that she said, you need to write books. So that's how I transitioned from one to the other.
Wonderful. Sherry?
Sorry, I have the little person here. My
okay, let him stay.
My response was in to the question about the friendship between Bessie and Honore and how it just ends. And I really kind of felt like, you've heard the phrases, friendships is a reason, season, a lifetime kind of thing. And I felt like this was a reason or a seasonal friendship, and they were bonded through trauma. So once Honore and Ezekiel kind of move off to Paris, I just feel that there's not that desire to reconnect in that way that she could have written. She could have, sent for her to visit, or if not visit, just send anything over the course of time. And she doesn't. But also, if she did, that would not have allowed Bessie to assume her identity, which I think in the end becomes more important than the friendship itself in this odd way. But I think that goes back and speaks to the inability sometimes for Bessie to make those true connections or deep, long-lasting connections, maybe.
Great. Thank you, Sherry. There was also a question about whether this is going to be a movie, Denny. Do you know?
Not to my knowledge, not. We had about 8 inquiries from different film sources. Those things can happen or not happen over time. You know, I have a film agent. I have 3 books coming out in the next year that we're thinking, we already have a film agent working on one. I don't know if anything's going to happen. We don't ever know if anything's really going to happen. These things take a long time. But before we break, I want to talk about, just quickly, my other books that are coming. I have a book coming in October 3rd, called The Other Princess. It is a historical about the goddaughter of Queen Victoria, who was an African princess. This is my first biographical historical fiction. It is about a woman by the name of Sarah Forbes Bonetta. She ended up being Queen Victoria's ward, or her goddaughter, in the 1850s. And it's her story, her life story. In February of 2024, I'm doing a co-authored piece with Eliza Knight. It is the story of Ella Fitzgerald and Marilyn Monroe's friendship. And it is called Lady Ella and Norma Jean, a novel of the friendship between Ella Fitzgerald and Marilyn Monroe. And then another book I mentioned earlier about Rhinelander versus Rhinelander case, called The Trial of Mrs. Rhinelander. All historical fictions, but yeah, so those are coming up.
And we just put Denny's website in the chat. So if you take a look at that website, you'll get to see all of those wonderful books coming up. And I know we didn't get to ask every question that was out there. And Miss Christina had fabulous questions for us. Thank you very much. There was one in the chat that maybe, Denny, you can answer in an email, and I can let everyone know. It was a question as to why she was angry every time they said Honoree did not own the house. And so
no, she was, because she didn't. That was maybe the one thing that Bessie knew about. That's where Bessie came out, you know, because Honoree didn't own it. It was always Bessie.
It was Bessie, right?
Yeah.
So she didn't want her. That's the one thing she didn't want attributed to Honoree, because it was her house, right? Okay, so if everybody could smile, we're gonna take little snaps of everyone.
Put your books up if you have it.
Put your books up. And this is not the judging.
Wonderful.
This is just everyone who was here today. And then we'll do a second one with the people who want to be judged. So if you could just hold your books up, I'd appreciate it. And keep them up. One more. Thank you very much. Okay. And so the people who want to be entering into judge, if you don't want to be entered, take your video off. If you do want to be judged, and Christina and I are the hosts, so we can't be in the judging. I mean, we can't be in the selection.
You can't.
But for everyone else that wants to be in the judging, please put up your Roaring 20s look so that Denny can take a good look and tell us who she thinks the winners are. So Denny, can you actually move from page to page? Or do I need to make you?
But this is so hard and so
I'm going to make you a co-host so you can move to from page to page.
I can do that already.
Okay, all right.
There are
So
2
there you
pages.
are.
So how many winners?
There's only one winner. I know this is going to be hard, but
this is so hard. I'm freaking out. Decisions. Oh man. Okay, I'm gonna do like what's the grand prize? Tell me.
Okay, because we are all book readers. It is a wonderful tote from, one minute, let me take my background off here so you can actually see prize. Okay, so it's a wonderful tote from Barnes and Noble. Very nice, heavy, thick canvas tote with a bag for your phones, really big for all your books, and a beautiful set of magnetic bookmarks for our winner.
This is like really hard. Okay, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna name, shoot, I had a number in mind. I'm gonna name 3 people. I'm gonna force myself to name 3 people. And then I'm gonna say third, second, first place, third and second place and first place people, all 3 will get a copy of the arcs of my book called The Other Princess that I will drop in the mail because this is too hard and so, okay. Number 3 is, and I'm gonna mispronounce her name, is Weena Andrews. Could you pronounce your name for me?
Wenna, like when am I gonna get your book?
Like, when am I gonna get your book, right?
Wenna. Number 3, number 2, oh my goodness gracious sakes, is Joanna Wallace. And she has the plumes from the peacock. Yay. And then I love this one too much. Tarina James, Tanira.
Tanira.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I like Panera Bread, but with a T. Thank you.
Okay, which I need to find that person so I can put you. What was the last one?
Will you folks be able to send me addresses for the 3 people I've just named?
Yes, we can get that done.
Who was the third person? I need to get them so I can put a picture.
Miss James.
Tanira James.
Tanira James, Joanna Wallace, and
Oh, I see. Okay, I have Tanira. Okay.
and you have, where'd she go? There she is. One, she gave me a perfect rhyme. Wenna. Thank you.
Okay,
And
so
it's
all 3 of the winners, if you could smile real pretty, I'm about to take a screenshot. So smile real pretty. Great. And who was number 1 of this group?
The number 1 winner begins with a T.
Tanira
James.
Okay, so Tanira, not only will you get a wonderful copy of one of the books, but you will also get this, okay? So we need to, now that
And
we know your
everyone, there were so many beautiful ones. And I just have to say, Miss James, Tanira's, yours is so authentic for the time. I just loved it. And I feel like it looks like the cover.
That's what I was going for. I was saying,
Oh, that's nice.
just like it. I loved it. I love it. Thank you guys, truly.
Great. So I'm going to drop our the survey for today's event again in the chat, and I'll also send an email out to everyone here. Our vice president for Epsilon Omega wasn't here at the beginning, but she is here now, so I'd just like to give her a chance to say hello. Corliss, would you want to jump on and just say hello to our guests?
So good afternoon. First, I'm so delighted that I had an opportunity to join. Arthur Denny, you said you don't want us to call you Bryce. Outstanding. I didn't have the opportunity to get to purchase the book, but as soon as I hang up, I'm going on Amazon. The storyline and to hear about your story is phenomenal. So I just wanted to say thank you everyone for taken the time to spend with us the pretty great reads and the literary pearls as we did this collaboration together. So thank you for taking the time out. And I also, Tanira, I love the look. And once you said you were trying to get the look of the book, I was like, wow, it's very, very close. So congratulations to the winners and congratulations for such an outstanding event.
Thank you.
Everyone have a good afternoon.
Yeah. Thank you, Christina. You did a fabulous job. I loved your questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christina and Sandy. Thank you.
Thank you,
Great.
Christina and Sandy.
Will you send me the addresses, or who will send me the addresses?
Between Christina and I, we'll get them all to you.
Fantastic. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Thank you so much, Denny.
Thank you.
This is wonderful.
Congratulations, ladies.
Thank you.
Well, unfortunately, we are out of time, but not out of conversation. Thank you for joining us as always for the lively and insightful discussion of this book. Please continue to support both book clubs, Literary Pearls and A Pretty Great Read. A huge thank you to our author, our guest author, Ms. Denny Bryce, for the wonderful book and for her wonderful conversation and contribution to this conversation. Certainly looking forward to more books in the future from her, maybe even more collabs, we'll see. But thank you again for joining us, everyone. Have an amazing day.
You too.
Bye. Thank you for joining
Have a good
us.
weekend.
Bye.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for everything.
Again, best week.
Have a good day.
Yeah.